We are live.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Monday, December 5th. Oh, it's my
December 5th.
sister's birthday tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday to your sweet sister.
Yeah, I'll tell her. So, we're going to talk about nonviolence, Abby, right, today?
Yeah, it's great.
Because obviously there is so much violence at the moment in the world.
Yeah.
Not at the moment, I think it's since the beginning of time. But I was really, I consider myself an adept of nonviolence. I think the man I have the most respect for is Gandhi. And, I'm a vegetarian because of nonviolence. I love nonviolence. At every single level, personal, communities, world, in my communication, I watch for it. I apologize if there is anything violent being said, right?
Yeah.
But I was thinking, Abby, right? Imagine we're in the street and we see a child being beaten up.
Yeah.
So I would definitely go and put myself between the attacker and the child, right?
Yeah.
But if he doesn't stop or she doesn't stop, well, I don't know why I should assume it's a man. I'm not going to let myself be beaten to death.
Right.
So
Right.
would I hit back?
Right.
If I was in Ukraine right now and my children were in danger and there was a Russian coming, would I just keep my principles and be nonviolent? What if you're Ukrainian, is that even an option?
Yeah.
Right.
I love what you're asking, to just look at, it's one thing to notice where in life am I still having subtle violence or in my thoughts or in my words. But then there's a whole other question of what happens if I was actually faced with violence right now? How do you manage that?
Because I know Gandhi, for example, or Byron Katie, who always shares that she was held at gunpoint and all she could think and say to the guy is, oh, please don't do that to yourself. She didn't lash out or was violent. She just said, please don't do that to your soul. Right?
Yeah.
So she applies nonviolence for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I would be able to do that with myself, but the urge to protect someone.
Yeah. Child.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking of that problem, right? Because I'm not a mystic. I'm awake, but I'm not enlightened. I'm not at the level of Buddha or something. And so I was thinking, okay, for normal people like you and I, we want to stand for nonviolence. We want to contribute to a society, a culture of nonviolence. What is the access? And I think the only access is not to be in a situation where I have to protect myself. So the only way I can see for normal people, right? I'm not talking about Christ or Buddha or something. The only access is to disappear the aggressiveness of the other person. Right? So if nobody is violent with me, I will not be violent. Right? So it's the first time where I think it's outside of me. But I'm still the originator because I need to support the person that is violent, not to be violent. And how to do that is by educating them, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell a story because this call is called story time. So there was this man in one of the seminars I led in New York City. He was very tall, very big, very menacing. He had one of the sock on the head, right? He looked like he was a gang member, and it turned out he was the leader of a small gang in New York. You know, just kind of, okay, you noticed a guy like that, right? So at one point, I was talking about forgiveness and letting go, and he just lost it. So he was like 3 heads above mine, right? And he's there at the mic, so aggressive. And I feel so small looking up his nose like that. And it really, I must say, took all my courage, right? But I keep asking him, what is the suffering you cannot be with? What is your pain? What happened to you, right? And what's the assistant in the seminar were hovering around because he looked really menacing, right? But somehow I knew, for having known that my anger hid my pain, that he must have something terrible hidden underneath, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, Abby, it was, I don't know how long it went on for, but I never forgot him. Suddenly, this enormous big guy dissolved into tears, like a child, like I had a little boy in front of me, and he started sobbing and sobbing. And he said, my dad killed a man, and he's in jail for life. And our community hates him. I was 10 when he did it. And the truth is, I still love my dad in spite of what he did. And he could not reconcile the fact that he loved a murderer called his father. He couldn't reconcile the two. So this shame about loving a murderer had him revert to violence.
Wow.
It's like an addiction, right? It's an escape.
Wow.
He could not deal with this opposition of loving a murderer that seems opposed to him, which is not, right? You can love a murderer. It doesn't have to be either you love or you're a murderer, but you cannot love a murderer. Who says?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So because he couldn't resolve it for himself, he had the option to violence. And, you know, I wish you had been there to see the transformation of the man. He became a lamb, like a lamb. And, you know, he was so sweet. At the end of the seminar, he introduced me to, he came along with his gang members that looked quite, you know, impressive. And before he introduced me, he said, don't tell them I cried because I'll have to kill you. And then he gave me the biggest hug. He was a different person.
Wow.
See, you remove the suffering, the option for violence disappears.
Wow. As you're speaking, what I'm getting is the possibility of amplification through community of this kind of work, because it's like, you know, a lot of people inside of their lives and then their families and then their systems, there's all kinds of pain, right, that happens through life. And it's amazing to think what that man, you know, the potential that he has in his community. So any one person that does their work of uncovering their pain and uncovering their suffering and working through that can amplify through communities and nations. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. So I have another story. So I'm in Connecticut and I'm leading another seminar, and this man keeps barking at me, literally barking, aggressive, barking. He's got a scrunchy face. He looks angry. He's angry. He's aggressive. He's barking. It's not dangerous, but he's like, everything that came out of his mouth was like poison. Anyway, same scenario, comes to the mic, and he's just like all over the place. And I'm saying, what happened to you? What happened to you? What happened to you? And it annoyed him so much. Yeah, they want to hit me after a while because they don't want to answer that question. But that's the only thing I can say is that what happened? I'm not going to deal with the aggressiveness.
Right.
I want to know
It's a
what's
symptom.
underneath, right?
Right.
When he was 9 years old, the kids in his well, how do you call in his place where he lived?
In his like neighborhood or
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Neighborhood. Now I don't know the name in English because I know the name in Spanish. Now
now you're just going to be shuffling languages. Yeah.
I'm going to read those calls in Spanish. Abby.
I
So
love that idea.
the kids in his neighborhood tied him and his brother up
Oh.
and peed in his mouth.
Oh. That is so horrible.
Can you imagine?
Oh.
And put dirt in it and I don't know what else and all that, right? Since 9 years old, then they let them go and he never, ever, ever talked about it with his brother or anybody else. He had the most miserable life of anger and violence and aggressiveness. And literally, his speaking was matching what happened to him. It was excrement and urine. Right? So anyway, so he finally told the truth, and you can imagine the whole room was like in love and in tears, and everybody forgot. Nobody liked him up to then. Yeah. And then everybody fell in love with him totally, right? And he had so many hugs. He had to say time off, just like stop hugging me, right? And transformed, even physically transformed. Speaking transformed, language transformed, everything, right? So, I left after the seminar. And then I think it was about 2 or 3 months later, maybe 4 months, I don't know, I got a call from his daughter. She introduced herself, said, do you remember my father, Connecticut and all that? It was 14 years ago, I think. And I said, yes, I'm not going to forget your father. Participant, we don't forget. So she said to me, he died. I said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. She said, oh, no, he had enough. He had the most terrible life. But I want to tell you, the last 4 months were the happiest, most peaceful months of his life. He, for the first time, could be alive without the agony of shame, humiliation, anger, and resentment. And she said to me, she said, it's fine that he went. That's what he needed before he went. He went peacefully in his sleep. And she said to me, I think he just checked out.
Wow.
He had enough. He learned what he had to learn and then he went.
Wow.
Right? So again, this man must have been disliked all his life. He was in his 60s, I think. He must have been disliked all his life, truly.
Yeah.
But underneath, there is the traumatized little 9-year-old. Right? So I know it's difficult to think of Putin that way, but I promise you, if I could put my hand on Putin,
wow,
he could transform like everybody else. Right? So all that to say, Abby, when I see somebody angry, violent, aggressive,
yeah,
I never take it personally. And also it comes from my own experience. Right? I was in a rage after everything that happened to me.
wow.
I had to look at the pain underneath, right? So I never judge the violence. I just keep looking for what's behind it. I know it's difficult sometimes because it's so unattractive in our everyday life to have aggressive, judgmental people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But at least even if you can't have a conversation to find out what is behind it, nonviolence starts with having the compassion to know there is something.
Yeah.
There is something so difficult, so painful, so humiliating, so heartbreaking that they choose violence to not deal with it.
Wow.
So that's the start of nonviolence.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I see how it's such a doorway to just, it gives you access, I think, to two things. It gives you access to have compassion for the little one inside of someone that is so hurt. And it also gives you access to what's behind that, which is someone's soul space, and that like in that space, they are love, right? And that's a beautiful doorway to be able to start looking at nonviolence.
Yes. So people often ask me, Abby, how can you be compassionate with everybody? Do you feel compassion for Putin? I said, yeah. I even feel sorry for him. Because living a life of violence is so much turning your back on your essence. It's so much dishonoring your soul intention in incarnating you. That how could I not feel compassion? Now, do I think it still should have consequences? Of course.
Yeah. I like that. I think that that's something that I learn in having these discussions. It's like things aren't mutually exclusive. It's like, yeah, in the material world, there's cause and effect of, if this happens, there's a consequence for that. But then there's this other space where you can have compassion and love for a soul and a being, and know that in the material world, they're still like, they can exist together. And I think that's beautiful.
Yes. You have to be able to operate in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Abby, that's our talk for today. Maybe
Beautiful.
everybody can practice nonviolence, especially as Christmas is coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lots of opportunity when Christmas is coming.
Lots of opportunity to practice.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Okay, let me just check to see if we have any comments. So much opportunity. Okay, hold on one second. Just looking to see if we have anyone underneath. Let's see. Hi, Dima. Hi, Maria. Thank you so much for being here. Maria says, so glad I saw you both live in passing. Thank you, Sophie, for your courage to ask that question. And thank you for sharing it here as an access to nonviolence. Love you. Hugs to both of you. And Dima says, wonderful. Thank you for you. Thank you both for being here. We love you both. And everyone who's with us. Thanks for hanging out with us on Monday mornings.
So we have one more call and then we off for 2 weeks, right?
Yep, that's right. So we'll post, the dates that will be off, but yeah, we'll see you next Monday for sure.
And everybody, if you have a question, if you want us to talk about something, please do ask a question. We love your questions.
And we have a very fabulous course starting in January, everybody. If you want to get access to that suffering that Sophie was talking about, because we all have it, right? And we all have some amount of that violence in our world, whether it's in how we talk to ourselves or in our minds or how we, treat other people. It happens. We're humans. But if you want to get access to that suffering child underneath and clear some of that up, this course is definitely for you. It's a life-altering course.
Great, Abby. Thank you for being a stand for what we do, darling. On we go, educating everybody.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, much love to everybody. Have a great week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.